Alright, horror hounds, and welcome to an episode of This Just In. Today we're going to be talking about Seed of Chucky.
What are you, fucking nuts?
We're going to do this one a little bit different than we normally would. We're going to give the things that are good an in, and the things that are not as good an out. We're going to be doing ins and outs. So, overall, thoughts on this movie. I saw this when I was a teenager. Was not a fan of it then. So I wanted to give it a rewatch as an adult.
Do you have any idea how that can fuck with your mind? Fuck with your mind!
Alright, so going through the things that are an in for me. Chucky.
I'm fucking infamous. I'm one of the most notorious slashers in history, and I don't want to give that up. I am Chucky, the killer dog, and I dig it!
His design and everything looks really good. Continuation from the Bride of Chucky with the stitched up faces. Looks a little bit better in this one than it did in Bride of Chucky. And Brad Dourif, his portrayal of Chucky. He does a good job. A lot of the one-liners, and he has some cool little phrases and stuff in this one, even though this one kind of is more of a comedy than it is a horror at all. The kills. I think there are two really good kills in this movie. The first one would be the special effects artist. When he checks the back of Tiffany and he opens it up, you kind of see like the beating lungs or heart. It's the whole back meat and all that stuff. Then her head spins around and Chucky jumps over him. They throw like a wire around his neck and they both pull and it decapitates him and his head goes flying up right towards the camera like a 3D effect. And neat little fun fact about that kill is the guy doing the special effects for this movie is the guy dying on screen as a special effects artist. Also, he ended up doing every movie and the first season of Chucky and signed on for season 2 as well. The second kill in this movie that I would say I'm a fan of would be the Paparazzi Guy. When Chucky's hanging over top of him about ready to kill him and Glenn screams no, and he backs up, hits a wall, and the sulfuric acid falls down on his face and melts him. Another in for me in this movie would be Don Mancini's risk-taking. Not all of the risks he takes in this movie, for sure, but being that he's a gay man, he likes to push the envelope a little bit. And with this one, he had Glenda, who's a transgender, and wasn't sure if it was a boy, if it was a girl, couldn't decide. So it went into the writing for that one, which then portrayed a character where he played himself as a boy, and he did dress up as his mom. Alright, so the things that I'm out on this movie for. The humor, for the most part, none of the humor really hits. This is more of two couples kind of bickering back and forth about whether or not their kid should be a boy or a girl, because one wants it this way and one doesn't.
You're tearing me apart! What about what I want?
The whole meta side where Jennifer Tilly plays herself in Hollywood, and then she plays the doll Tiffany, and Tiffany thinks Jennifer's amazing, and Tiffany wants to get into Jennifer's body. The whole entire storyline for that. I mean, this movie gives us some really weird stuff. See, Tiffany pulls down her shirt, get doll boobies. Chucky masturbates into a cup. Tiffany then uses the turkey baster to impregnate Jennifer. Tiffany goes through a whole spiel where she no longer wants to kill people because it's a bad image. One up out of that is when she calls the wife of the cop she killed in the last movie, and she thinks she's all setting herself free because she's admitting to something and telling him about it, and the lady's thinking it's a mean prank and crying on the phone. That was kind of a funny part. Let's see. Other things I was out on. Made in Japan. The connection that Glenn/Glenda makes is that he has Made in Japan on his wrist. So does Chucky magically when he's waving in front of a camera for the movie that he's shooting. And the first movie never had anything to do with Japan. Now, maybe the doll came over, but the second movie is a toy factory that builds toys. Appears to still be in America. And then the third movie, you go from that factory to them giving the guy the doll right in the beginning. So I don't understand where Japan came from. Another thing I was out on was that when he decided he was going to go, somehow he jumps in the back of a truck, and then it shows him flying in an airplane to Hollywood to then be in a box in a truck that makes it directly to exactly where Tiffany and Chucky dolls are located. And then he pulls out the amulet from the last movie because he magically has it tucked into his shirt, and then he says the three lines and they come alive. That whole sequence of connection with Japan, amulet in his pocket for no apparent reason, and somehow makes it from England all the way over to Hollywood without a hitch. Doesn't make any sense. Alright, so overall on this movie, compared to the last time I watched it when I was a teenager, it wasn't as bad as I remembered. It's still not a masterpiece. Knowing it's a movie that I'm not a fan of, it's probably my least favorite of the entire series. It was entertaining in parts, but like I said, a lot of the humor doesn't hit. But there's a lot of kills in this movie. I think this has the most kills up to this point, and it has the most blood and gore. I mean, Bride of Chucky had a decent amount, but this one probably beats it by quite a bit. Um, I mean, there's a scene where he runs Britney Spears off the road. Not really Britney, but and he yells, "Oops, I did it again." So, I mean, this movie does age itself directly into that time era. And I feel like this movie goes just way too meta. It's okay to be meta somewhat, but this one goes like meta to the extreme. So overall, I would give this movie, I'm gonna go with a 2.5 out of 5 stars. It's not a great movie. It does push boundaries when it comes to transgender, and it's nice to see that Don Mancini was ahead of that curve because he made this movie in 2004 with gender identity confusion and all that stuff. So, you know, crazy that he had thought about it back then and then was able to put it into a movie which you had not seen ever. At least I can remember. So I give him props for that, and he said himself that he naturally thought this was turning more of a comedy drama for this one. After the last one was more of a romantic comedy, so that's the direction he thought he'd seen it going in. And with him being the writer and director on this one, he was able to make that happen. I know this is not his least favorite movie, but for most of us fans, I know it is. But it's still not a bad movie. I mean, that's the nice thing about watching Chucky movies, is even when you get the dumpster of Chucky, it's still not as bad as other movies made or the bottom of the barrel for some of the other horror icons in all of their movies and their series. Alright, so we're going to be coming back with Curse of Chucky next. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, share this with other people, comment below, and until the next one, rest in peace.